I'm joined now by Editorial Board member Joe Rago. Good to see you, Joe.
Hey, Dan.
Let's talk a little bit about an editorial that you did for us on the President's Independent Payment Advisory Board. I think the first thing, because we've always got so many moving parts here with the Obama health care plan, just briefly tell us what this board was created to do.
Yeah, well, like a lot of things in the healthcare law, once you explain it, it sort of collapses.
Right.
You know, rational people will sort of be like, well, what's that all about?
Yeah.
But no, this is 15 members appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate. They're given huge new powers to control healthcare, healthcare markets, healthcare spending. So when Medicare spending exceeds a given target in a year, then this board swoops in and the sort of technocrats will get in there and they'll tell Congress how to reduce healthcare spending.
Now, one quick and I think important question. Does this board, or will this board exist inside Medicare or outside, and how much independence will it have?
It's designed to be totally independent of any kind of political check or balance.
Kind of like a medical Federal Reserve?
Well, it's actually much broader than the Federal Reserve. You know, its decisions aren't subject to administrative review, so if they displease Health and Human Services, they won't be allowed to check them. They're not subject to judicial review. Consumers can't sue them, so it's really total insulation from any kind of normal check and balance and really democratic consent.
So, on the way to the new healthcare church, something funny happened in Congress this week to the Independent Review Board. Tell us about that.
One of the things we're seeing on the Hill is sort of a growing democratic revolt against this undemocratic, unelected, unaccountable commission. So you've had a lot of, there's a repeal bill, it now is a straight majority of the House, but that includes 20 Democrats as co-sponsors of the legislation.
Repeal?
For repealing this board. It's been coming out of committees on voice votes with no objections.
That happened this week?
That happened this week. And the White House this is its main tool to control health spending. You know, it's sort of the central premise is that get all the smartest people in the room, they'll crunch the numbers and figure out, you know, oh, don't spend money on this, or we need to spend more money on that, or we reimburse too much for this service and maybe the money should be going to another service.
Yeah.
So this is the technocratic core premise of the healthcare law, and so the White House is actually launching a major lobbying campaign to try to get Democrats to vote against this. It's going to pass anyways, but the big question is how many Democrats are going to join it, and my guess is quite a lot.
Well, there's something interesting going on here politically, though, isn't there? In a sense, the scales are falling from the eyes of some of these Democrats over the implications of creating a board that has this much power over which they have no control and no influence.
Right, and you know,
this becomes bipartisan.
A lot of Democrats genuinely oppose this on philosophical grounds. They say, look, we have these entitlements, they're democratic, we should have a say. There's another strand of thinking too, though, which is that for a lot of liberals, entitlements aren't only about social benefits, social welfare, but they're also kind of a spoils system, a way to you know, direct spending to certain political clients, political patrons, and you know, former White House Budget Office Director Peter Orszag, who designed the IPAB. This is kind of his brainchild, but he likes to tell a story about oxygen suppliers, and when he's at the White House Budget Office, he's trying to reduce the price we pay for oxygen tanks and masks and things like that, and he sort of thinks everyone shares the same good government philosophy and sits down at a meeting with House Democrats and says, all right, what's on your mind? And a member says, well, I'd like to get more money for oxygen suppliers in my district. So that's kind of...
Welcome to the real world.
It's sort of not only giving oxygen supplies to Medicare beneficiaries, but it's also about rewarding the home district and donors and things like that.
Well, Joe, let's talk about the board a little bit on its own terms. The idea is that the board are healthcare experts. They're presumably specialists, and as you know, healthcare economics, the medical industry, does a lot of studies of the way healthcare is delivered in this country. Presumably the idea here is that they will look at some of these studies, try to figure out best practices and so forth, and then move them into the healthcare market, 17% of the American economy.
Right.
So what do we know about the basic idea here, the model behind figuring out abstractly what works and then trying to transfer it over into
one of the things in healthcare, and even more broadly, you see this in business, is you get a small pilot project, it turns out it works really well, and then you try to scale it up. You try to apply it everywhere as a best practice or whatever, and this does not work. And the reason is that small programs usually work because of local conditions, dedication to one cause among all these guys, and then you say, well, let's put in a regulation and everybody else will do it, and it usually doesn't work that way. Healthcare has its own cultures, just like corporate cultures that are resistant to change, dedicated to the way things are. And one thing, the Congressional Budget Office has run a study. We've been doing pilot programs in Medicare for 20, 30 years, and they looked at it and they said, well, we've looked at 34 programs to reduce hospital admissions. None of them reduce hospital admissions, and all of them increase spending relative to the status quo. You've also got this for other programs within Medicare. So it's a bad track record.
We've got about a half minute left, Joe. I can't let you go without you telling this one beautiful example you have of what one might call a critic of this sort of method, General David Petraeus.
Right. The point I just made about local conditions is actually drawn from David Petraeus's counterinsurgency manual, where he says you want to keep programs small because if they fail, you can try something else, and they work much better when they're small, and it's a great lesson.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We're going to keep an eye on IPAP as it runs through the Democratic mill.
Right.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Joe.